So first and foremost, while my slides are advancing, there we go. Don't advance, then advance two at a time. Okay, so let me touch on the fears, myths, and reality to begin with. So the fear factors, you know, some of the headline activities there, up to 20 million euros or 4% of global annual turnover by way of fines. They are substantially higher than any data privacy fines we've seen previously. And most importantly, it's whichever is the higher there. So, you know, the higher element there really does mean something quite significant for small and medium-sized businesses, because the sheer volume of the fine could be enormous if they're under a 20 million euro fine, but they've only got 5 million of turnover. Whereas for large global entities, 4% of annual turnover, as we'll see in some of the examples I'm about to take you through, could actually mean the extinction of the business. There's actually, in some sectors, particularly I think around areas like retail, where they're only making 2, 3, 4% profit, and we're seeing a lot of examples in the news at the moment about retailers disappearing, or a lot of retailers work on really thin margins. A 4% fine means the difference between being profitable and being out of business. So those numbers are really, really very important, and I'll touch on some of those as real values for you a little bit later. But a few things that people don't necessarily talk about under GDPR, the consequential damage, and I'll touch on many of these in the examples. So reputational damage, reduction in shareholder value, declining revenues, declining profits, reduction in customer confidence, loss of customers, executives getting fired. You know, there's nothing like a data breach to see senior executives getting fired, and actually company extinction, where companies absolutely cease to be. And again, we'll touch on a few of those as well. The things that a lot of people aren't talking about is the two final powers that the regulators have under GDPR. One is the cessation of data processing rights in the European Union or about European Union citizens. So the regulator can stop you processing information in Europe or about EU citizens. And if you decide to continue doing that, what they can actually then do is completely remove your license to trade across all 28 European Union states. So they can actually stop you trading in its entirety. So it's not the 4% fine you should then worry about, it's the 96% of the rest of your revenue in Europe you should worry about. These are the things that people don't talk about. Now, they're the fear factors, and every single one of those is true, okay? So being with no illusion, they're very true. If we look at the myths, and the myths are all lies, you know, it's an IT project. Well, no, it's not, and we'll see that a little bit later. It's a legal regulatory problem. No, it's not. Well, yes, it is, and no, it's not. The software application can fix it. The Institute has seen that in lots of different areas, and there is no software application that can fix GDPR. It's not like taking a pill and all of a sudden, you know, the problem is over. It doesn't work like that. Some people are saying it's a tax of doing business in Europe. No, it's not. It's hard being put about by consultancy firms to generate business. No, it's not like that either. The regulator won't impose fines. Well, you know, let's see what happens there. We voted for Brexit, so that won't have any effect on us. Actually, this has already been enshrined into UK law, and the UK government was driving for this anyway, so it's way ahead of the crowd. And it's nothing really in the hard work to sit there. Well, you know, we'll get through some of those examples. And the final one is the reality. This is actually quite important. So the reality is GDPR has huge implications across many businesses. It absolutely needs a holistic and operational approach. So it's not an IT problem, it's not a legal problem. And where I see it being owned by IT directors or head of legal, I see organisations who are heading it towards a bit of a car crash. Executive ownership is critical, and again I will touch on that a little bit later in the presentation, because GDPR impacts every part of the company. There's no part of an organisation not impacted by GDPR. And actually, as a concept, protecting all of our information is brutally simple. But once you unpack all of that and then look at what that means for a company, it's incredibly difficult to achieve. And again, I'll give you an example of what that truly means in a business in a few slides' time. But the purpose of today is really to look at some of the breaches that we're already aware of and what those implications are. So, bottom line is, if you weren't already concerned, then perhaps you should be. And let me take you through a whole raft of different examples now that show just how a data breach can happen, and actually also give you examples where some of your best intentions can be badly misplaced. Okay, so even when you think you're doing the right thing, you're actually doing the wrong thing. So my first example goes back to TalkTalk. This happened in October 2016, and the image on the left-hand side is of Baroness Dido Harding, who was the chief executive at TalkTalk when this particular data breach happened. 157,000 records were stolen by a 14 and 15-year-old hacker from a test and development environment that had no security around it whatsoever. I'm told that even I could have hacked into that test and dev environment. It was so insecure. And trust me, I know very little about hacking. Interestingly, what TalkTalk had done, and actually this came by way of an Italian acquisition where this sat, they decided the best way to test everything was to test it with production data. So they moved 157,000 production records, real information that included 30,000 credit details and 18,000 bank accounts. So when the 14 and 15-year-old hackers broke in and downloaded the information, they were taking real information. They were caught pretty quickly by the criminal intelligence services, and there's no proof they actually did anything with the data other than they got in and downloaded it. And, classic, willful teenagers doing what willful teenagers can do. There was no proof they did anything illegal with it. But interestingly, the ICO took a very dim view of this and imposed the maximum 80% of the maximum fine available, which under the data protection law from 1998 was a maximum of £500,000, and they imposed £400,000 of that 500,000. Interestingly, under GDPR, that 80% of the maximum fine, so 80% of 4% of last year's global turnover, would have worked out at £57.5 million. So the sheer severity of the scale here was enormous. Now, in addition to that £400,000 fine, which is huge for a company of TalkTalk size, a lot of reputational damage, a lot of consequential loss, over 1 million customers decamped, their 4 million, 25% disappeared. As you can see on the right-hand side there, their share price declined by 60% over the following months, and 17 months, almost to the day, after the data breach, Dido Harding in the picture there was removed from her job. It was put very politely that Charles Dunstan was coming back in to take over the helm, and Dido would go off to become a baroness in the House of Lords, living on a daily stipend of £375 worth of expenses. But be under no illusion, if you lose a £10 million job to be paid £375 a day on expenses, that's being fired. Okay, so I actually think Dido did a really good job of managing the TalkTalk fallout. She did a great job of fronting it on the BBC 10 o'clock news, stood in pretty much that position. You can go back and view this on the BBC News Service. She did a pretty good job of fronting it out and managing it, but it still cost her job. So there's some real high-profile cases. This is the first one that I recall really bringing this into the forefront of the psyche of the British population. One that we've just seen in the press recently, Tesco Bank. Tesco Bank had a data breach in November 2016, so still under the Data Protection Act of 1998, not GDPR Data Protection Act of 2018. So the maximum fine that the ICO could impose is still £500,000. Under GDPR, that would have been £2.3 billion. Okay, so again, the fines could have been enormous. Interestingly, a couple of weeks ago, the FCA announced that they were fining Tesco Bank £16.4 million for data breach. This data breach was really interesting. This was an inside-out job. So this was somebody whose internal credentials were poor. It was ian.west@tescobank.com sort of thing, and my password was pass1234. The sort of thing that anybody could get into. The interesting thing about this, the hackers got in and roamed around many thousands of bank accounts and stole odd amounts of money. It was like a random number generator. In accounts that had balances into 1,000, they stole a few hundred. Into accounts that had a few hundred, they emptied the lot. There was no logic, and for them to get around the thousands of accounts at the speed they got around to enter and steal random amounts of money was actually the investigators are scratching their heads as to what happened there. They do know it was an employee whose credentials were compromised, and this is something that you need to think about very carefully, just how strong are your log-on credentials. But no, they've already been fined $16.5 million by the FCA. There's still potentially another $500,000 to come from the ICO, but under GDPR, the number could be truly enormous. Look at Uber. Uber, this happened in February 2016, and this really did cause a lot of eruptions because the chief executive, or former chief executive at Uber, decided to hush this one up. They made contact with the hackers, and they paid them off. They paid them $100,000 to delete all the data, and then they decided to hush it up. Now, that is illegal on so many different levels. Well, first of all, keeping it confidential and keeping it quiet and pushing it up is a really bad thing to do. 57 million customer names were compromised, and over 600,000 drivers were compromised. So this again would have been a potential fine of $500,000. The reputational damage to Uber was enormous. Can't really tell you what the fine under GDPR would be because Uber is still a startup business in theory with no turnover, so it's difficult to price that one. Well, the consequential loss of this could be billions. And the CEO and founder of Uber, who hushed it all up, was fired. The investors took a very dim view of that individual behaving in such an unprofessional way, and Travis was duly dismissed from the business. So this is a really interesting scenario of pushing it up and doing things illegally. We look at Equifax now. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Equifax. Equifax was a business born in the United Kingdom, as actually are all credit referencing agencies, so Equifax, Experian, etc. As I'm sure those of you are aware of that industry know. This is all born out of the mail order industry and reclothing the generation post the Second World War, and this is all about offering credit to buy a new wardrobe, and have a new suit and pay for it on weekly amounts sort of thing. Well, but Equifax is now, like all the credit referencing agencies, moved well outside of credit referencing information. They cover all manner of security information, passport information, driver information. They work with a lot of the intelligence and security services with sensitive criminal information and all this sort of stuff. Well, Equifax had a massive data breach. 146 million individual records were compromised, potentially some of yours as well. And what happened? They had an internal audit, and in Windows 8 there were a whole host of holes in the operating system. They've been advised. Well, first of all, they were advised internally by their own auditors they need to do a whole host of patching on, which they didn't do. A group of ethical hackers then approached Equifax saying, we've found there's a whole host of holes in your infrastructure that you need to patch, and Equifax did nothing about it. And it was those holes that the hackers broke through and stole all those headline numbers there. 146 million records, 99 million addresses, 209,000 payment cards, 38,000 driver license, 3,000 passport. You get the idea. This is all really, really serious stuff. Now, interestingly, this didn't go live for nearly 6 weeks. And in the intervening period between it happening, so you imagine over a period of time, the executive community at Equifax were told they had these vulnerabilities before the hack actually happened. When it actually happened, they then decided not to go public with it. And in that period of time, their chief operating officer and their chief finance officer traded almost $1 million of stock each. So in other words, they sold almost $1 million worth of equity that they owned in Equifax. That's a very high price. Guess what happened immediately after the data breach was announced? The Equifax share price plummeted. So here we're looking at a fine of $500,000 because it was still under the old data protection regime. Under GDPR, that would have been $126 million. reputational loss in this case is huge, because they were seen as a trusted agent for government and security agencies. You name it. This is a really big deal. Consequential loss could be billions because of the class action lawsuits that are now lining up in North America. And there is no doubt that the chief finance officer and the chief operating officer will be residing in an orange boiler suit in a US penitentiary for insider trading. Okay, so there is a whole host of different implications on what happened with Equifax. All very, very different scenario, something they could have stopped, something they knew about, but they chose to ignore. And I'm seeing a lot of this, the Institute is seeing a lot of this in executives who are just ignoring what they need to do, and that's never a good thing. Just over a week ago, we saw the ICO stepping forward on a data breach that happened at Heathrow Airport. So Heathrow Airport's Limited, a member of staff lost a memory stick. On that memory stick were 76 folders with over 1,000 files, including a whole host of very, very sensitive personal information. That stick wasn't encrypted. There is no reason why the employee should have been carrying that information on a memory stick, certainly an unprotected memory stick, or even a memory stick at all. And that memory stick was lost, it wasn't reported, and then it was found, and the compromise then happened. So Steve Eckersley from the Information Commission's office says that data protection should have been on Heathrow's agenda, but it just wasn't. Again, executives just not doing what they needed to do. Last week they were announced a fine of £120,000. Again, this was pre-GDPR coming into force. So, but under GDPR, 4% of Heathrow Airport's limited turnover would have been 115 million. So orders of magnitude here. And the question is then, how much do we then trust something like Heathrow Airport's Limited, where they can be so easily compromised as having insecure data sitting on a memory stick? It's one of these farcical scenarios. You like to think of airports as being a very secure environment. This cannot be the case if we're seeing these sort of data breaches. This then brings us on to the really high-profile scenario, which is Facebook and Cambridge Analytica. So as we know, that a lot of manipulation of different political activities going on around the world, and definitely the free access that Facebook gave to Cambridge Analytica to do political lobbying off the back of their information was really quite critical. As there we got Mark Zuckerberg sitting there from a few months ago, where he faced a US congressional hearing. He was invited to do that, and he had a very good reason to go there and do that. He was also invited to face a UK parliamentary hearing, which he declined. And the numbers that follow will perhaps explain why his priorities were in that sequence. So in total, 87 million accounts have been affected. Okay, the ICO has already, excuse me, the ICO has already imposed the full $500,000 fine available under the original Data Protection Act. Under GDPR, that fine would be 1.6 billion. But part of the reason that Mr. Zuckerberg went to the US congressional hearing is because there are fines in the US for this sort of activity that don't have anything to do with data protection, actually, that are really quite astronomical. And as it says there on the screen, the potential US fine could be up to $40,000 per affected account per day. So 87 million multiplied by 40,000 equates to $3.48 trillion per day that Facebook could be facing as a consequence of this. Plus, on top of that, then the class action lawsuits that the 87 million individuals are now gathering together to sue Facebook. Be under no illusion, this could be the end of Facebook as an organisation. This is really very critical. If you look at Cambridge Analytica, the image there on the right-hand side of the Information Commissioner enforcement team arriving at Cambridge Analytica's offices in central London. This is a really genuine thing. They descended on the office, they emptied it of all documents, all technology, everything was removed. Now, I absolutely want one of those ICO enforcement jackets. In fact, I'm thinking about getting some printed. So if anybody would like one, let me know, because this is a really cool jacket. You just want to go walking down the street in, just to really upset every company you walk past. But yeah, so big implications there. But interestingly, Cambridge Analytica, from the point that the news broke, Cambridge Analytica ceased trading in 3 weeks. They were closed down, done, dusted, finished. Maximum fine that they can face is £500,000. The business doesn't exist any longer. But the executives of Cambridge Analytica are absolutely facing criminal prosecutions. So so the implications of this are really, really incredibly stringent. This then takes us on to Facebook's data breach from only a few weeks ago, September of this year. And this drops absolutely under the GDPR legislation. So in total, 50 million accounts were affected worldwide, or 50 million accounts were compromised worldwide, and a further 40 million accounts were then locked as a precaution because they weren't sure whether they were affected or not. This absolutely sits under GDPR now. So the maximum fine that Facebook can face here is 1.6 billion. And this is a real possibility off the back of the previous maximum fine, the £500,000 for the Cambridge Analytica scenario. That was the maximum fine and the only time the ICO has ever imposed the full amount. Okay, so the likelihood is, having a second data breach, that the regulator will be looking at imposing the full fine. They don't have much choice to do otherwise. Again, reputational damage going into billions, hundreds of millions of customers disappearing, people stop using Facebook. We see the close on 2 billion users of Facebook worldwide start to decline quite dramatically. So, so the implications, if Facebook continue on this route and have more problems, as a business, they really will be having colossal issues moving forwards by way of credibility. People just stopping trusting using the Facebook scenario. Let's look at a few more. The British Airways data breach that happened in September 2018. The image on the screen here, I thought I wouldn't choose a newswire service to explain this one to you. This is actually it's the first one that comes up in Google if you go looking at the British Airways data breach. And this is from a legal practice. And this is the first instance that I've seen at the top of a Google search list that shows a legal practice going after class action lawsuits. And this is an organisation. I've removed their logo from the screen to protect the innocent. But basically what they're saying is, contact us if you have your data compromised by British Airways, and we will sue British Airways on your behalf. So this is the first attempt at really cohesive European-wide criminal activity and sort of criminal prosecutions where we're chasing class action lawsuits. So we're seeing the legal firms absolutely now starting to jump on this and chase after the big businesses. British Airways, the jury's still out at the moment, whether they will be seen to be massively culpable in their Avios data breach or not. But a huge number of customers have been affected by this. So anybody that holds a British Airways club card and uses any of their online services, there's a high probability that your data has been lost, and there's severe implications because it has your travel information, it has your credit card details, it has your passport information. There's a lot of very personal information about you. But so this is the first time that we've started to see law firms stepping forwards, putting together cohesive joint litigation. And this just happens to be the first one at the top of the Google search list, and you can go look for that yourselves. But it says, are you eligible to compensation? If you are, let us represent you. And we're going to start to see a lot more of this. This happened post the 25th of May. So again, this is under GDPR. 4% of the international airline group global revenue equates to 918 million euros. Yes, British Airways put all of their revenues in euros, not sterling. And potential reputational damage is just colossal. Consequential loss, again, who knows? But if this class action lawsuit really starts to pick up, it could be into billions. It really could. So it really depends as to what the regulators find when they do their investigation, as to how much work BA had already done and how little they'd done, and that will determine how big the fine is. So this is one to watch with interest, like the previous Facebook example. Watch with interest, because these are ones that are going to have some really, really substantial fines behind them. So unless it is found that British Airways have done everything they possibly can have done, and yet they've still had a data breach, in which case the regulators already said they would be treated leniently. We can't prejudge this one along, but definitely one to watch with interest. And this will start to determine just how good or bad we are moving forward. Let me take you back a little bit. Carphone Warehouse, back to August of 2015. 3 million customer accounts were affected, and actually over 1,000 staff details were lost as well. And Elizabeth Denham, the UK Information Commissioner, said at the time, a company as large and well-resourced established as Carphone Warehouse should have been actively assessing data security systems and ensuring systems were robust and not vulnerable to such attacks, which I think is pretty important. Again, 8% of the maximum fine was imposed at the time, so 400,000. And again, the reputational damage of to the Carphone Warehouse brand was enormous, as was the consequential loss, with huge number of customers departing elsewhere to other more successful brands. Interestingly, in June of this year, Dixon's Carphone, so Carphone were then acquired or merged with Dixon's in the intervening period. Dixon's announced a breach in June of this year, relating back to July of 2017. And what they said was over 10 million customer details were stolen. So if you have shopped in a Dixon's, Carphone Warehouse, Currys or PC World in the last decade, there is a high probability your information has been lost. 10.3 million customers covers most of the households in the United Kingdom. So there's every likelihood, if you've shopped in one of those stores, you absolutely had your information stolen. Okay. Of that, 5.9 million payment cards were taken, and the potential fine under GDPR is 421 million. This is an interesting one because the Dixons have been quite clever, because they've said the breach happened in July of last year, but they reported it in June of this year. So you think the scenario there is a slightly different one, but it'd be interesting to see how the ICO interprets this. Whether they say, well, the maximum fine is under the original data protection plus $500,000, or whether it's now under the new GDPR legislation and thus 421 million. 421 million, that pretty much wipes out Dixon's Carphone's profits. Okay, that turns a profitable business to an unprofitable business. And then the questions start to ask, well, how long will we see that business continuing to stay in the marketplace? The interesting thing is on the image on the left-hand side. If you can read the text is in the red box there. But the important thing is, whilst there is no proof that any of the information, because all of the payment card details were protected by a chip and pin, which means that it is reasonably secure and information is then encrypted and kept separately. But what it does do, it now opens the theoretical risk of phishing attacks to happen to those 5.9 million. So whilst they don't have your PIN details, they do actually have your name and all your credit card details and all the rest of it. And that then leaves you wide open to future phishing attacks for them to go after. So clever hackers can be using this one. Okay. Morrison's, again, a completely different scenario. This was a disgruntled employee who published 100,000 employee records online. Morrison's took the individual to court. That individual was sued, and there was a whole lot of criminal prosecutions. Morrison's won 170,000 in damages from the guilty party. But interestingly, this is in the courts right now. So a class action lawsuit has been raised by all 100,000 employees against Morrison's to say, well, actually, even though the employee had the rights to get to this data, and they should not have published it in an online forum, which is what they did, the Morrison's should have taken better precautions to prevent the individual from extracting that and publishing it, is what they should have done. They didn't do that. The current estimates are that the damages could range between £500 per person and 5,000 per employee. So that could be up to 500 million in damages that Morrison's then have to pay to their own staff, even though they're not the guilty party. So again, this is a legal case going through the courts as we speak right now. This is going to be a really interesting test case as to what happens moving forward. So again, completely different scenario. This case, an internal breach, an employee stealing data and publishing it online. So a very, very disgruntled employee indeed. This one is a real case that came to the Institute a few weeks ago. And this one is a B2B environment. Most of the ones I've talked about so far have been B2C, but this is a B2B environment. So Equifax is a little bit B2B and B2C. This is entirely B2B. So the Institute, in fact, it was me as the individual who was on call late on the evening of Friday, the 24th of August. I took this call personally. The data protection officer from one of the Institute's clients called me at just after 6 p.m. on a Friday evening seeking advice and assistance. And basically what happened was one of their members of staff had a briefcase stolen from the backseat of their car on the 20th of July. Again, it was a Friday. The employee reported the loss to the IT director first thing on the Monday morning, the 23rd of July, and the IT director said, "That's okay. We'll replace that. That's your laptop was an old laptop anyway. We've been giving out much newer, bright and shiny laptop since then. Don't worry about it." And that was all that happened. As a chance meeting, the IT director mentioned this to the DPO at lunchtime on the 24th of August. And the call with me went along the lines of, "Ian, we've had a laptop stolen. Do we need to phone the ICO?" And I said, "Well, tell me more. I need to understand what was the scenario, what was on the laptop, and all the rest of it." So we started with, so what was the operating system on the laptop? It was Windows 7. Windows 7 is like Swiss cheese. It's got more holes than cheese. I was at a conference recently where they actually showed you how to hack into Windows 7. Okay, and we then went on. That laptop had a copy of all of the CRM data. It had most of their commercial contracts, and it also had a number of security tags in the pocket at the front of the laptop bag. Now, if I was to tell you that this organisation provides airside services to the vast majority of European airports, this now starts to make you understand quite how severe this is. And so all the contracts are on there, all the CRM contacts, and passes to get this individual airside at European airports. So this organisation then had to report themselves not only to the ICO, but also to the police and all their airport clients to explain what had happened. Now, there is no proof that any of this was used for anything. No, there's no the missing laptop was never reimbursed and all the rest of it. There's no proof that it was ever done for any criminal intent other than it could be a druggie selling it for 20 quid in the local pub to get their latest shot, whatever. But the bottom line is the implications of this are colossal. The reputational damage to this company is immense, and the security implications for every major European airport is astronomical. Okay, so again, very simple example, entirely a B2B scenario. This is one that we see in the Institute happening all the time, the call centre breach, and this is very illegal activity. That so any of you that run a call centre, you should be listening to this example. My guess is you're breaching this one already. So the first one is you called into the call centre, and we're recording this call for training purposes. Almost every call centre I ever called into is the first thing you hear. We're recording this for training and customer service principles, and sometime during the call, whatever I'm doing, I'm then asked for my credit card details. My credit card details are to pay for whatever service I'm about to take. Now, interestingly, you're not allowed to record the credit card information. So I'm reading out my 16-digit card number, I'm reading out the expiry date, I'm explaining what my name on the card is, and I'm reading the 3-digit CVV numbers. I'm reading them out loud. You've recorded that. you are not allowed to record that information anywhere. That is confidential information. Anybody recording that information is perpetrating a data breach on everybody that calls their call center. You are not allowed to do that. So if that is something your company is doing today, rest assured you are behaving in a very, very illegal way. Okay? You can then compound that by actually having that whole process outsourced. You've got it sitting in the cloud, you've got it outsourced to, the image I've got on the upper left there is an Indian call center. If you've got it outsourced to the somewhere else in the world, you're then compounding an illegal activity by then posting information outside the European Union or outside the European Union jurisdiction. This is something that we've seen many, many organizations falling foul of. You say, if you run a call center, you need to look at this today. You are undoubtedly breaching this, okay? So, whole host of things that you need to think about, okay? So, please, don't compound that problem. This is one that we've also seen when you actually had a data breach. People then put in the data subject access requests, and what organizations then have to do is they have to provide full responsive information within 30 days. But examples we found are organizations not acknowledging the DSAR request, organizations not even responding to the DSAR request, organizations taking longer than 30 days to respond. But interestingly, the most criminal one that we've seen is not confirming the data subject's identification and then providing the data about the person to the unconfirmed data subject. So which means you just now perpetrated a data breach on yourselves by not confirming that I am Ian. So have I given you my passport, have I given you my proof of address and all this sort of stuff. And you then pull together all the information about Ian and you then send that information to me and say, Ian, this is what we were holding about you. You've now just perpetrated a data breach on yourself by sharing information with me about me without confirming I am who I say I am. Okay, so you have this is a data breach after a data breach. We're seeing these as well. So I've taken you there through a whole raft of different examples. So lessons learned, and are you applying them? So no matter who you are and what you do, you'll have a breach. Get a plan, test it, and make sure that you're ready to execute on it. Deploy all the necessary data breach technologies that you need. Don't try to keep it secret, as happened at Uber. Don't do anything illegal, as what happened at Equifax and at Morrison's and all manner of other places. Be ready to manage the consequential loss of the data breach, and that could be much bigger than any fines, and have a mitigation strategy and supporting evidence available. So let's just dash through each one of those quickly. So you will have a data breach. Exactly what happened at Morrison's. The fact that you had a disgruntled employee who said, "No, I'm going to go post this stuff illegally." Okay, you cannot stop that from happening. You can try and mitigate it, you can struggle to stop it. But so rest assured, don't sit on your laurels. You will have a breach. Get a plan and test it. This is the roadmap that GDPR Institute published over 3 years ago now. The first 3 bubbles there are the planning stage. The piece in the middle is the execution activity, and then the winding road to the right hand side of the screen there is all the longer term things that you have to do. One of the real things was have a data breach case management process. Understand you're going to have a breach, have a plan, and get ready to make it work. So what you should have done, the schematic on the screen now is your organization. So we start at sales, the front end, the customer services, marketing, logistics, etc. And we go right through to the far end of the business, through production, research and development, supply chain, buying, etc. I think I've covered most departments in most companies with this slide. But this is what you should have done as an organization. So across all of those functions, you need to have trained all of your people as to what they can do. Everybody needs to be trained. Every process on and offline that uses any form of personally identifiable data needs to be identified and found if it's valid and accurate. Every IT app, system, machine, device, network, cloud, database, content server, website, social media and backup need to be checked. Okay, if you're holding information, why are you holding it? Do you have a legitimate reason to hold it? All that information, both online and offline, including every information repository, all locations everywhere, including all of those cardboard boxes you have in off-site storage environments. Everything needs to be checked. Don't think of GDPR as just online. It's not. It's on and offline. Every contract you've got, customer, partner, supplier, and all of their third parties, you need to have a DSAR process, so you understand when somebody asks for their information, how can you provide it back to them, ideally automatically. Consent management, do you have a reason to hold the data? Do you have consent to hold every piece of personally identifiable data? Why are you holding the data? Have you got a reason to hold it? If you haven't got a reason, delete it, get rid of it, you don't need it. And as far as breach case management is concerned, don't wait for the breach. Have a plan and test it. This is what you should have done. This is what the Institute has been saying to organisations now for over 2 years. Have all these things together. If you haven't done all these things, your organisation is severely exposed. And a lot of organisations are severely exposed. A lot of executives don't understand this. So, what to do when you have a breach? Don't wait. Time is of the essence. Don't compound it with secrecy. And actually, at this point in time, your data protection officer becomes the lead. Everyone now works for that individual. Now is not the time to find out that the person you hired on the lowest salary you could get away with, who's a sycophant to the CIO or whatever, or CEO, someone you can bully. That's not the right time. This person now swings into action. This person now earns their money. This is where you really understand the importance of having the right person in the role of DPO. You need to conduct an initial data breach. That's hour 1, and you have 72 hours to report yourself to the regulator. You need to invoke your executive information plan, no matter what time of day, no matter what day of the week. This is one of your times where you can get executives out of bed. Okay, invoke the data breach case management strategy. The plan you've written, invoke that. What you then do in the following hours is conduct a detailed breach, everything about it. The DPO then has a legal responsibility to inform the supervisory authority in your jurisdiction. You may or may not need to inform data subjects, like my example of the car window being broken. You need to invoke your PR communication strategy, start to mitigate your consequential loss, and you may need to inform the police as well if criminal activity has been involved, like Morrison's. Make sure you have all your data breach technology deployed. Okay, so this covers databases, content repositories, your network, your endpoint security, so your perimeter of your business, dark web, so what has already escaped your business, so what is already outside and already swirling around on the dark web that you're not aware of. Role-based detection, why is the head of marketing looking at everybody's salaries at 11 o'clock on a Friday night from their home office? The head of marketing shouldn't be looking at that information. They may have access to, but they shouldn't be looking at it. So why are they doing that? So role-based and information level as well. So I can get to information at a certain level, but I can't go above that. So have all that detection in place. Now, once you detect a breach, the clock starts ticking. You have 72 hours to go to the regulator to tell them you've had a breach. So be ready for the whole aspect of consequential damage. So first of all, deluge of DSAR requests. We lovingly refer to that as the Sarnado. It's this huge volume of requests that now come in from customers. Consequential impacts we've touched on earlier. So in my opening slide there, consequential impacts are enormous. Make sure you've got all of those covered. Make sure you're planning accordingly. And have your mitigation and supporting evidence ready. Don't wait for this to happen. Do not wait for the ICO guys with their jackets to walk through the door and start picking up all of your documents, all of your laptops, all of your servers, and removing them from the building. Have that mitigation strategy, have everything documented, have everything ready to answer all of their questions. You've had a data breach, and it's a serious data breach. You need to be able to answer all their questions fully and accurately. So a little bit of an advert for GDPR Associates, says the commercial arm of the GDPR Institute, and we offer everything from executive awareness, so that's explaining to executives why they should care, right the way through down to the writing of model clauses for privacy notices, cookie notices, etc., and everything in between. We can help you with your complete GDPR program to make sure that you have mitigated all of the exposures. Okay, so a little bit of an advert there for the associates business. But we are here to help you. We've helped over 150 clients on 5 continents to get to a compliant position. So don't think this is just a European Union issue. Actually, our largest client at the moment is actually an Australian business, and there's a huge amount of business in the EU. So it is literally a true global problem. So that's where we're at from a service perspective, and we're more than happy to help and assist any of you in any way with any problems that you may have relating to GDPR. So that's me, my contact details. If you'd like to join the GDPR Institute, we have members who are complete novices right the way through to global experts in the space. So the Institute is there to help and assist anybody with their GDPR problems. Please feel free to reach out and join. It's not a huge amount of money. £20 a year is not going to break anybody's bank, but gives you access to some unbelievable thought leaders in this space. So without further ado, I'd like to hand back to Sally, I believe, who is going to take us through a final few words.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. That was great. I think all of those examples really highlight the the impact of a data breach. And as we've seen with helping our clients, sorting out physical storage, whether it be pieces of paper, tapes from backup servers, microfiche, all the way through to unstructured data sitting in their networks. Keeping everything clean and getting rid of what you don't need is so important. And one of our product managers in the States, Jennifer Crawford's got a great tagline, and it's they can't hack what you don't have. And so making sure that your retention policy is up to date and applied across all of your data sources. And I think someone raised a question about storage in boxes, something we've been very traditionally good at in our past lives. It applies, GDPR applies to that data as well, and you have to have it clean. You've got to know what's in there, and you've got to delete what you don't need. And we're working with our clients to support that, and obviously can help others as well. And I think a great quote here I picked out from Forbes the back end of last year: if you don't start your GDPR compliance with an information governance overarching plan, then you'll probably fail, because compliance is across the whole of the organisation and not just pockets. And I think Ian's brought that to life throughout the examples as well. So I Am Mountain, as I mentioned before, we're here to help too. We've got a big information governance practice, and that's at the very core of what we're about, information management throughout its life cycle. So I think with that, bearing in mind we've only got about 9 minutes to go, shall we open out to questions, Tom?
Yes, thank you both. That concludes the presentations, and we have plenty of really good questions to get through. So I'll ask the first question, and Ian, if you want to chip in first, and then we can perhaps open out to Sally if she would like to add, and take it from there. So our first question from Fraser Halliday is: how can companies protect themselves from employees going rogue and releasing data they have access to?
That's a very, very good question. So first of all, staff training is a really critical part of this. We found a lot of organisations have not trained their people. So we have a very, very simple view that GDPR extends from the reception desk to the chief executive's desk, and it covers everybody between those two bookends. When you arrive as a visitor and you sign into a visitor's book, is that GDPR compliant? Well, if I'm just signing a book and I can see everybody that's signed in before me, no, it's not. I'm not giving you my permission to hold that data and share it with everybody who walks through the door after me. What I'm saying is, I'm here to meet Tom on this day at this time, and under health and safety, you have a responsibility to look after me whilst I'm in your premises. That's why I'm signing the visitor's book. Nothing else. I'm not saying some of my peers and competitors who fall through the door can see I've come to visit Tom sort of stuff. So GDPR covers a massive spectrum. So training everybody as to what they are and aren't allowed to do with information is critical. So the individual at Morrison is a good example. Did that individual know that it was a formal criminal act for them to release all of the employee data and salaries publicly? Yes, maybe not. It takes a certain person to think, I will willfully share information, knowing that I'm going to face criminal actions. I'm going to court and I will lose. There will be prosecutions and I'll have a criminal record. Companies won't get a job again, sort of thing. It takes a certain sort of person to think of doing that. Okay. So training is an important one. Putting in a lot of prevention technologies, so downloading things onto memory sticks, lock off USB ports. That means that the data breach at Heathrow airports wouldn't have happened if the person could not have downloaded it to USB. I hear a lot of banks and insurance companies are now locking the USB ports on laptops and things, so they physically can't download. Encrypting data. So if somebody does extract it into a non-approved format, they just get scrambled gobbledygook. That's another means of protecting it. But if somebody has rights to get to the information, and as part of their day job, they're allowed to download it, analyze it, manipulate it, and all the rest of it. If they then willfully choose to steal it, and a simple example I use all the time is when employee leaves from company A and goes to company B, they take a copy of the CRM database with them and they say, well, actually, these are my customers. Well, they're not your customers. They're your previous employer's customers. And you happen to have been paid to do a job for that company. So you have no rights to that data. And yet we know there are hundreds of thousands of people change jobs every day of every month. Who take their copy of their contacts folder off Outlook and things like this. You have to explain to members of staff that is illegal activity. If you're caught doing that, we will prosecute. You will face criminal sanctions and all this sort of stuff. So it really comes back. There's a number of preventative strategies you can use, but you cannot stop somebody from taking information they're allowed to access if you've then not locked off the capability for them to download it into a cloud, onto a memory stick or whatever. That has to be a corporate IT decision. But I know of one organisation who do everything. They even ban mobile phones from in their offices, and everybody in their offices is a highly secure environment. Everyone in their offices is video whilst they're at work, and it's a sackable offence if you're caught with a mobile phone in the office. So you couldn't even take a picture of an image on a screen. So that's a HR strategy. So there's many techniques, and it really depends to how far you want to go. But I would start with training and education.
Brilliant, thank you, Ian. And I'll just put a question to Sally now. This one comes from Sarah Pimlott, who asks, is issuing GDPR awareness training sufficient to all employees in the first couple of weeks of employment?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think just to take one step back as well, Iron Mountain, I've got enhanced vetting of employees before they join the organisation, and you get vetted every few years again as well throughout your employment. So those kind of, I suppose, HR strategies are also useful to be deployed as you onboard new people into the organisation. Training and induction, yeah, it's important and it needs to set the tone, but it needs to be a constant reminder, because security and responsibility of an individual should be at the heart of the value of an organisation, and that needs to be led by everybody. Personally within Iron Mountain, we have very regular security and compliance courses that we go on, and have to pass a certain percentage on tests, etc. And they bring those to life in interesting videos, and you can sometimes get tested with phishing emails as well. So I think there's a lot an organisation can do. It depends on the size and I suppose how much money is spent on it. But ultimately, if you have a breach, you have to say it's worth it.
Okay, and another question as well from Silvaria Skiluna. Apologies for struggling with your name there. What is the best way to deal with large number of data in physical files in relation to retention period?
Right, I can probably pick that one up as well. If you've got an up-to-date retention policy and you have a large amount of files in a box, hopefully you know what's in the box in some cases, and we've had many organisations that have been storing things for many years and perhaps haven't got the right amount of information to know what's there. But there's strategies to be deployed either through specialist software that we have, or by actually physically lifting the lids to look at what's in there to enable you to apply your retention policies, and then to defensively destroy what you don't need. And we would recommend, if you don't need it and haven't got any useful reason for having it, then absolutely get rid of it. And going back to previously, they can't hack what you don't have, and also it costs you money to store these things. If you don't need it, there's a cost saving there as well.
Okay, and perhaps a question for Ian from P. Haken. Do you think we'll see more executives being fined as well as the companies?
Well, I mean, it's interesting actually, because one of the last things that was removed from the regulation before it was published was personal culpability. So there was originally a whole section on personal culpability and individuals getting fined as well as the companies. But there are actually enough criminal sanctions already to deal with a person doing something illegally. So in that scenario, I don't necessarily see a lot of individuals being fined under the regulation itself. But I mean, some of the European Union states have actually already have added criminal sanctions on top of their GDPR legislation. So GDPR as a regulation is common across all 28 states, but it's sort of a minimum base level criteria. States can actually put on top of that. So we've seen some of the Baltic states have actually put in criminal sanctions for executives. So executives are willfully negligent. They can get criminal sanctions all the way up to going to prison. So I fully expect we will see a lot more interest from executives when criminal sanctions against them personally start to emerge. Well, I think the quick answer to the question is yes. I think we'll see a lot more personal fines being applied as GDPR as a principle starts to become very serious.
Great, and we have another question from Joanna Kennedy, who says, as an internal DPO, I advise my employer on how to comply with GDPR, but in some cases, they are choosing to balance the risks and not comply. I am documenting that. What else can I do? I want to protect the company, but I also want to protect myself.
That's a real challenge. I'm seeing a lot of data protection officers being ignored by executives. I met with a DPO of a huge insurance company a little while ago, and this individual actually used to work for the Information Commissioner's Office, and he was seduced out of the ICO to work for said insurance company with a colossal salary. I mean, his salary went up threefold between what the ICO was paying him. But he said, interestingly, the ICO, I was in a middle-level management job being paid a certain amount of money, but everybody hung on my every word. And I'm now in a very large role, reporting directly into board in one of the global insurance companies, and everybody ignores me. So he's got the job title and the money, but nobody listens to him. Where previously he didn't have the job title, didn't have the money, and everybody listened to him. So it's a problem I'm seeing with DPOs myself. I mean, I was actually approached about a DPO role myself in a large company relatively recently, and the DPO role was reporting into the chief legal officer, and I said, well, that's just pointless. The DPO should be a chief executive reporting role. It shouldn't be reporting to a lawyer. A lawyer's there to mitigate the exposure. Well, actually, a DPO is there to manage the exposure, not mitigate it, to manage it. And they said, well, we're always reporting into global chief legal, not chief executive. And I said, well, in which case then you're not going to go any further with the discussion with me, because I said that's just a pointless debate. So in the performance of a DPO role, if you find that your employer is compromising what you can do and are allowed to do, then keeping a documented evidence of that. Because ultimately, if they have a data breach, you're the person responsible. The DPO has a legal fiduciary duty to report all this information. And if you're then stipulating that the executives specifically told you not to do something, which left an exposure, you have to report that to to the Information Commissioner as part of your submission. So yes, you absolutely need to keep a documented evidence of that. But I mean the one that the associates have been used for on many occasions in this scenario, by the way, where we do our executive communication session, is where a concerned member of the team has said, I've got a problem with my executive community. I need somebody to step in and put the fire on them and tell them why it really matters. And I've done several of those briefings myself, where we actually come in and do an executive education as to why this really matters and why they should be taking it seriously. So, if you want to do that, we would be delighted to help you as an external authority to come in and say, you have to take this seriously. Compromising your own integrity by not doing something you should be doing is a stupid thing, really stupid. So document it if that's all you can do. If you want some external advice to come in and tell executives why they're being really dumb, then we'd be delighted to come and help you do that.
Brilliant. Okay, and one final question for Sally from Alice Courtney Hatcher, who asks, in the case where we hold end client data on behalf of our clients, for example, in a software as a service model, who is responsible for notifying the end user of a data breach, us or our client?
Good question. I don't know. I might need to ask Ian to help me out on that one.
It really depends on the status. So you have the concept of a data controller and a data processor. And so the data controller is the person who actually owns the data. They're always on the hook. They always have responsibility. The data processor could have responsibility if they're the person that is culpable in breach. You also have the concept of joint controllers, and you also have the concept of sub-processors. So a joint controller means that both parties own the data, and it's that both liable. And you then have sub-processors who are, so you have a contract with somebody who has a contract with somebody else who has a contract with somebody else. You go down the line, it's somebody down the line that perpetrates the breach. It could be a sub-processor that has responsibility of telling the individuals as well. So the straightest, cleanest answer is it is always the controller's responsibility, but it may be processor, joint controller, sub-processor responsibility also, depending on the level of severity, the number of people involved, and all this sort of stuff. If it was me and I was the controller, I'd always take responsibility for it. Because you don't have the choice of taking responsibility, but I would make sure that everybody else that's behind me in the process, so every other processor, sub-processor, etc., I'd make sure that every single one of those are on the hook with me. I wouldn't let anybody have a get out of jail free card. That would be a very benevolent thing to do, and one might even argue stupid.
Okay, thank you, Ian. And do you have more questions rolling in? But unfortunately, we are going to have to end the webinar there. Unless, Sally, you had any final words to add?
Yeah, I just say, it's been very interesting, obviously a hot topic at the moment, and if we can get back to any of the questions, we will do afterwards. And I think, Tom, will you be sharing the slides out?
We will be able to transfer a copy of the slides if viewers are happy for us to send their name, company and title to the GDPR Institute. That's just Ian and the GDPR Institute's terms. But yeah, information on that will be in a follow-up email that we will send in due course. But thank you both for sharing your insight today. It's been a fantastic session. I'm sure our audience will agree. You can hear more from Ian and over 100 leading speakers at Data Protection World Forum, taking place at Exile London on 20th and 21st of November. Tickets to the event are currently available 2 for 1. We also have a free exhibition area pass available courtesy of Data Protection Magazine. For more information, please visit our website, dataprotectionworldforum.com. And hope to see you there. But thank you, Ian, again. Thank you, Sally. And thank you to our audience for tuning in. And goodbye.